And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, July 27th. How is everybody doing?
Doing well.
Yeet.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm at the lake at a party where a bunch of people are playing country music.
Thank you, Dr. Random.
There it is. I found it.
Okay, can somebody give us a confirmation in chat that all is well and sound is fine, and we'll get started on this.
And
Listening
Dr.
to it
Random
here,
will
it
be here
sounded
for your
fine.
first hour of the show
Yep, it's
because
working.
he is at the pool party and he
Sounds well.
Actually, it's not a pool party. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah. So goodbye.
Okay, sorry about that, Joshua, but I had to mute you. So this week we are checking out, or I should say this 2 weeks we are checking out Zorin Os. We moved our distro challenge to a 2-week period rather than a 1-week period, and it's just going to have to wait. Basically, the conversation for Zorin Os is just going to have to wait because I have to make a rant. Okay, I made a rant last week about CyberpowerPC and the terrible time that I've had with customer support about the computer. So I'm going to rehash some of this so that I can tell the full story in one spot. So I purchased a computer for almost $2,400 from them. This included some really nice high-end parts. One of them was RTX 2080. So when I got the computer, I was really excited to see that there was an EVGA RTX 2080 in the system because EVGA is the company that I usually buy for my video cards. When I got the computer, plugging in the monitors with the display ports, the plugs were loose, and it wasn't just on one of them. It was on most of the plugs that you tried to plug in were loose. It got to the point where, and I'm thinking to myself, do I really want to go and say something right at this moment because I've just got this computer and it's all nice and, maybe it'll be okay. Well, it isn't okay. It wasn't okay because it got to the point where if you touch the wires on the back of the card, the monitors would go out. So this was completely unacceptable for paying this much for a computer. So I contacted customer support. They had said, if you allow us to put a credit on your credit card on hold so that we can give you the card. We made an arrangement. They were going to send me a card and I was going to take it out and send them the old defective card. They did this and I ended up with a Gigabyte 2080 card. Now, the EVGA card that I had RGB lighting and it was a premium card. The Gigabyte card, although it's a 2080, is not of the same quality and does not have RGB lighting. So I contacted them and they told me that the fine print on the website says that if they are out of stock for a certain part, they can replace it with any equivalent part. And they didn't want to hear that this was not an equivalent part. It was an RTX 2080. And that was what all they were concerned about. They weren't concerned about whether it had RGB lighting or not. Well, I had told all of this story last week in my rant. So the saga continues this week, where I get an email on the 22nd saying they received the card for the RMA. So a couple days go by. There's no status on this RMA. So I emailed them on Friday morning and say, hey, what's the status of this RMA? They email me back immediately. Now, this is after how many days? They email me back immediately with pictures of the video card that I sent them, showing that there's damage on this video card and that they will be charging my credit card another $740 for this replacement card.
What? Whoa.
So what happened was I took the card out. I mean, I've been dealing with computer parts for years. I know how to be gentle with these cards. I'm not going to be banging them around. This card was not damaged guaranteed when I put it in that box. I put it in the same foam packaging that their video card came in and mailed it in the same box. The tech support, after going round and round, even admitted that it probably didn't happen in transit. Because they even sent me a picture of the box when they received it, and the box was perfectly fine. Now, it didn't happen on my end. It didn't happen in transit. So now, is this some kind of scam where they are damaging a perfectly good card so that they can charge $740 so they don't lose out on a defective card? I mean, this is total bad customer service here. Okay? I contact customer support, and all they can tell me is the card was damaged. They're going to charge me the $740. 15, 20-minute conversations on the phone, waiting for half hour, 45 minutes on hold. I asked to talk to a supervisor. They will not allow me to talk to a supervisor. They only give me a disputes email address that I can email them. Contacted the disputes email, and the guy from the disputes email sent me basically the same wording that the other guy sent me to say was, the card was damaged on your end, and you're charged the $740. Now, why is my word any less than their word in their departments of their company? Their company, whoever it is that deemed to say that it was damaged, why is their word better than mine? Because I know it wasn't damaged on my end.
Because
That's
your word
defamation of character.
Because your word means nothing to them. That's the reality. You should just pressure them over and over and over.
I've been dealing with companies.
way
I've been dealing
you
with
can do that.
companies long enough, online or in person, and bought so many items related to this stuff. I have never in my entire life had such a worse experience in tech support or customer support. You just don't do this to people.
No, and if the part was defective, which it is, if the part is defective, they can return it to the manufacturer for a credit. So it's there. I would think it's a scam at that point.
Yeah, that
The card
this is all
defective. So
the
it goes
card
back to the
is
manufacturer.
defective. You returned it because it's a defective card. The ports on the back wiggle and jog and all the rest of it. So irregardless of what other damage may or may not happen, for all you know, it was received like that and you didn't even spot it. I mean, when was the last time somebody bought a brand new component for their PC and then they looked at it line by line, inch by inch, to see if there was any damage? No, you go, oh, my new graphics card, boom, straight in the machine.
That's it.
It may have arrived like that, but it's a damaged card. How can they charge you for a damaged card?
So,
You're a customer.
and if they're going to charge you an extra $700, and there's no way you're going to convince them otherwise, file a dispute with your bank because
through the credit card company.
Well, I can't file a dispute with the credit card company yet until it's fully charged. So it's pending right now. So I have to wait till that happens. But I'm more concerned with, number one, that they would treat any customer like this. But number two, the next person that this happens to is going to get treated the same way. And that is just completely wrong. So I'm going to say to you guys and to everybody out there, if you have a choice to buy a computer, don't buy a computer from CyberpowerPC, because although they offer wonderful spec computers on their website, their customer support, their tech support is absolutely terrible to work with.
Now, the other thing, Rocco, you're in PA, right?
Yes.
Okay. I know in New York State, we can actually file a complaint with the Attorney General's office. And New York State is very much, consumer protection, which is really great. And if you're not the only person who has complained, then they will go after you. Even
and the Better Business Bureau as well.
And the Better Business Bureau. So I would file a complaint with both of those.
Speaking of them, the Better Business Bureau customer review for CyberpowerPC is just a hair over 1 star.
Wow.
Rocco.
The other thing
he didn't want to hear that.
Yeah, the other thing that we can do as a community is Rocco has tweeted Big Daddy Live has just gone live, yeah? So anybody who wants to, can you please retweet it? And like I did, just I said, shame on CyberpowerPC.
I was actually
customer service. The more has to put it out there, the better.
I was actually going to wait until...
Rocco, what state
Go
are
ahead, Tyler. Go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, so something I've been wanting to bring up is this is why my friend documents everything. He once got a board, it had bad pins, or so it was defective somehow, and he sent it back to Newegg, documented everything on video, and in the process, either the shipping company or Newegg damaged more pins on the socket, and Newegg tried to pin it on him, and they tried to charge him for it until he went and showed him, hey, this is video evidence. This was perfectly fine when I sent it to you as far as physical damage goes.
Hindsight, I should have taken a picture of the card, but I didn't. But I've dealt with companies like Newegg returning stuff and never had an issue like this. Never. Big Pod, go ahead.
Rocco, since they are charging you for another card, you should, and I don't know for the American law, but probably you should ask them that they send you back the original card. And
they're okay sending me back the original card. That was actually one of the things they said.
That they must send you all the documentation, because then they can actually go directly to the manufacturer and maybe deal with them directly.
Yeah,
they must send you the warranty and everything, every piece of documentation plus the original box.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the tech support guys, the very last one that I talked to, basically, I don't know how to take it across text, because sometimes sarcasm doesn't always come through text, right? But he said, fortunately for you, we're gonna have to send this card back to you. And fortunately for you, it's only a loose connection at the back of the card, so you may be able to put it back in your computer and it will work. Really? That's the best you got?
I mean, I probably would have never bought a computer from them anyway, but that's just unbelievable. And Adam, I mean, if Adam saw that their BBB rating is that bad, like.
So if you have that documentation from that support person telling you that in text, then you could probably use that against them.
Yeah. Also that there are multitude of things you could stand on if you actually go to the court of law.
Well, also, Big Pot, it depends on the state that he's in. The state
that's also.
Yeah, and your country's in the European Union, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they've got stronger consumer protection. And I don't know how great Pennsylvania is. I know New York State's got great consumer protection laws. So I don't know, and I don't think PA, that's why we get taxed so much. I don't think.
We should get something for it.
Yeah, we do get something for it. And sometimes just even threatening that you're going to contact the Attorney General's office, boom, they fix it. I found that out.
But definitely lodge a complaint as soon as you can with your credit card company.
That's the other thing. Ask
that they not pay it until the dispute is over. And then drag it out as long as you can. And by this time, we'll be hitting Twitter and every other media outlet that we can to say what shocking customer services this is. Because basically, Rocco, they are calling you a liar.
Yes, they are.
Aiming your character.
Why would I have a damaged card? Or why would I have damaged it and allowed them to charge my card $740? Why would I even agreed to that thing, to allow them to charge the $740? That was more for a formality, for them to have a hold on the card. That wasn't so they could say the card was damaged. And maybe that's just my being naive. I don't know.
So ask them, Rocco, that they sent you the card and it was defective. Yeah?
Yep.
So how can they charge you for a defective card?
They're not charging me for the defective part of the connections being loose. They're charging me for the part that the pins were actually damaged. There was one pin that was in the picture. Allegedly, it was like allegedly damaged. Yeah. Broken. And then the next one next to it was like a little bit less broken. I mean, you would have had to drop this card in order for that to happen. I mean, okay. Anybody got anything else to say about that?
Yeah, if you remember right, last week, Rocco, when I said using the media, unfortunately, a lot of times that's what will get it done. What I mean by that is, like, we have 27 on your side, or these other ones where they have consumer protection advocates that will go after companies that do stuff like this. And if they get a black eye in the media, the news media, you know, they tend to respond a little bit too. I do think all the suggestions here, the Attorney General, all that, you know, and the credit card. The other thing I usually do when I get parts in, if I have an issue with something, or even if I'm shipping something to somebody through my eBay business, I usually always photograph every inch of it before I let out. And then I photograph how I packed it, every step of it. Not everybody thinks to do that. But regardless of what you're describing, you know, if you have, like Barb said, or if you have photographs as they written in text that they said that the card itself was not damaged in transit, that's all a help for you, at least to some extent. But I would still look into your local news stations and find out if they have a consumer on your side type thing too. You'd be surprised how powerful that is, even over the legal way of doing things, whether it's through the Attorney General or attorneys or whatever. Nobody wants a black eye like that.
And word of mouth can do more damage to them than they really want. One disgruntled customer knows at least 5 other people who's going to say something, and each one of those 5 people knows 5 other people.
Well, I wouldn't.
That's true.
I wouldn't say that they care about whether or not they get a black eye in the media, because if their Better Business Bureau rate is 1 star, then I mean they probably don't care.
But when it comes to being on news, for whatever reason, companies tend to stand up a little bit more, and they may not care, but it's just one more chance for you to fight against them. That's all.
And also, that's a way that it can hurt their bottom line, because people will hear about it and people say, oh yeah, remember I saw that on TV or whatever, I'm not buying from them. Or somebody mentions it and they say, you don't want to buy from those guys. And that can have, you know, and that can snowball. It's amazing how that can snowball, because you're not the only person.
Mark Greaves has got a good point in chat. He said, did they tell you to remove the card from a pre-built system and return it?
They did.
Yeah. So the whole reason you bought it pre-built in the first place, because you didn't like doing that sort of stuff. So they instructed you to remove it, which is what you did, and sent it back.
Well, that was an agreement that we made, because obviously this is a production machine. I can't have it down. So it was an agreement between the both of us that I would remove the card and I would send it back to him. But like I said, I've been handling computer parts since the 90s. So it's not like I'm new to this where I'm just going to damage a card and not notice it. I know how to be careful with cards, with equipment in general.
They set you up.
Yeah, pretty much, Dan. That's what it feels like. It feels like it was a complete scam, because they would have to put the money out for a new RTX 2080, and they didn't want to do that.
I wonder if they're circling the drain as well, though, wouldn't they? They surely they would RMA it back to EVGA.
Yeah, that's what I said before. So it's not going to be any money out of their pocket in the end, unless they bought it gray market. Now there's the question. Maybe they bought their stuff gray market.
And technically, maybe that's actually in your card. It could be someone else's card. They shot pictures of and send you.
Nate, what were you going to say?
Said I wonder if they're actually already circling the drain, like they are already at a crisis point, and that's why they're pulling those stunts.
No, this has been a thing with them for a long time. Like, this is nothing new for that brand of PC.
Oh.
Yes. Too bad I didn't realize that before I purchased one.
Yeah. It's always in hindsight, isn't it? Rob?
Because, and this is why it's important to buy from companies that care about their customers, care about the community, like System 76. System 76 has a reputation for caring about the community and for awesome customer service. You compare the two companies, I would have gladly, now in hindsight, even paid more money to get a computer from a company like System 76 than to get $200 off and buy it from a company that could care less 1 ounce about the customer.
Well, here's another thought for you. During this battle, if push comes to shove, maybe you ought to explore the option of maybe just sending the whole thing back. Just say,
I looked, Joe, and there is a 45-day return policy. So up to 45 days, you can return it for a refund. This has been since April, so it's past the 45 days. Believe me, if I could have, I would have sent the whole computer back and been done with it. They
don't have like a 90-day or a 1-year warranty on something new?
They have a warranty on the parts, which in their mind they were handling because they sent me the new card.
They're trying to muscle him around to waste time and everything else.
Yep.
Well, that's what it is. They'll burn the clock. Yep.
So that's my rant on CyberpowerPC. Again, don't buy there. Buy from somebody like System 76 who cares about the community, cares about their customers.
Yeah.
Rant over. Somebody cheer me up, will you?
How about them lying?
I bought a motherboard and all the stuff, processor and stuff like that from Micro Center, and brought it home, put it all together, then eventually discovered I had 2 USB ports on the front of the case that would not work. And I traced it all the way back to the motherboard being the issue. So I took it back to Micro Center. They took it back and put it on their test bench and said, "You're right, this board has 2 dead ports." And they gave me a new board. No questions asked.
Our Micro Center doesn't even do that. They're like, "Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, here, get a new one."
Yeah, well, it's like the Best Buy that we have here. If something doesn't work, there's not even a question, or you just bring it back. You don't even have to say it doesn't work.
Yep. You know, I love me some Best Buy.
Yes, Best Buy is awesome. Unfortunately, they don't have like They don't have like motherboards laying around and every detail of what you would need.
I mean, I've gotten stuff there and it doesn't work or it doesn't suit what I need, and they take it back, no question.
No questions asked.
No question.
Best Buy is awesome.
You saying Best Buy or Geek Squad?
It's
I walk into Best Buy and go to customer service if I have something that, like, I got a laptop there and it definitely wouldn't boot. It had a problem, and I just brought it back and got my money back.
Yep.
Without a question. That wasn't Geek Squad. That was I walked over to the customer service desk.
The technical aspects of how Best Buy and Geek Squad handle interactions with each other, because they're not the same company, but
no, they're not. They're
owned by Best Buy. Essentially, any issues you have with the computer, service issues, things like that, Geek Squad handles. Anything that has to do with transactions with like a new piece of merchandise from the floor, grabbing something out of stock, that goes through Best Buy. So immediately you're sort of handed over between these two companies, and they handle it all on the back end.
Yeah, and there was no question and no argument.
And they're an example of perfect customer support.
But now, wait, I'm going to tell you a story about them real quick, too. And I think it's important because I don't know if this is changing at the one over here. When my son was in college, he graduated in 2009. I bought him a laptop, and it would get an intermittent, like almost like it got an electric shock. The screen would kind of just, So we brought it back. It was a mail-in thing. Brought it back there. They sent it in. Said they couldn't duplicate it. Sent back. It's supposed to be 3 tries. I paid an extended warranty on it. Right? It's supposed to be 3 tries, and they'll replace the system. They said, "Well, let's send it back for 4th." Okay, sent it back for 4th. Came back, did the same thing as soon as they handed it to us right there. Brought the manager over that was on duty at the time, and they said, "Well, we can't duplicate it." So then I got it home. It did it again. I brought it right back, took a photograph of it. They said, "Well, we want to send it in for a 5th time." I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "Unless you want a scene right here in the store," I said, "this needs to be dealt with. I paid for the extended warranty." So now the story with that goes is, well, they changed the way their warranties read on how to replace it. Before it was whatever you spent is what you got back in product. They said, "Well, our new warranties don't read that." I said, "I don't care what your new warranties say." I said, "This is what we paid for." I walked out of there with a different laptop and that monitor right behind me, which is a 25.5-inch screen rotational monitor. At the time, that was $600. It was an $800 laptop in that because it was $14 for the one laptop. Now, that was one incident that I had a long time ago. But the reason I said this story is because if something like that happens, those are the things you need to kind of know.
They were having a problem back at that time in around 2008, 2009, even into 2010. And that's also when their business started to tank because of that kind of those deals. Then they realized, oops, that's not smart. Because I saw that even at the Best Buy here. And now they've got great customer service.
Yep.
Back in the day, they used to sell jewelry and stuff. Isn't that crazy?
They sold everything.
All right.
Well, I'm sorry, Rocco, for what it's worth. I'm sorry you're going through this. I know how frustrating and depressing it can be.
And the amount of money that you spent, that it shouldn't be like that.
It's very, very frustrating because, again, when you spend that kind of money on a computer, on anything, if you spend that kind of money on anything, you're expecting to have a good experience, including customer support, and that's just not the case. So, all right,
Rocco, I would call around like the Attorney General's office and stuff like that and start asking them a lot of questions. And, ask them if you should ask for the damaged card back and stuff like that, to see where to go. So then you'd give it a better peace of mind.
Yep.
Yeah, and check your consumer protection laws in PA. I don't know what they are. I just know New York. That's all.
Yep.
Hopefully they're better than their roads.
All right. Let's move on to something maybe hopefully better news. So let's talk about some Zorin OS. So Zeb, why don't you start it out and talk about it? Okay,
well, I installed Zorin on my machine, and I was really pleased that straight out of the box, the video card worked. RTX 2080 Ti's are not yet supported fully, if at all, by Nouveau. So I was really pleased to see that they'd gone that little extra mile to enable me to install it. So I installed it, got it all up and running. I've been playing with it all week. I'm bored.
I know how you feel, buddy.
It's just not for me. It's a bit like Linux Mint. You can install it and it will run, and it will run forever. But it's just so dull. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, I really like RTM because we had him on. Antiom, because we had him on Destination Linux, and we had a fantastic interview with the guy. And him and his brother have been working on this since they were 14. It's ridiculous. Wow. They've got a marvelous product. They've even got nice little touches where you go to double click a deb and up pops their little program that runs it, and it says, "Oh, do you know that this is an unsupported deb file? We're not quite sure where the source is from. Are you happy to go ahead with this?" And it's all in red, and you have to click on it. Yes, install it anyway. So I thought that was a nice little warning touch. And there's no doubt about it. It's a very polished, very nice distribution. But it's obvious that they don't think GNOME can run without any extensions because they've got loads of them. Hang on, I think they've got about 15, and then half of them are disabled. So if they're disabled, why have they put them on my system? Not quite sure whether or not
evil.
I don't know whether or not different extensions are needed for different layouts, because their layout switcher is also very, very clever.
Yep.
You can go and you can decide to have the different types of bar along the bottom, along the top. You can have the full menu, the small menu, the other menu. I think the main reason why I didn't like it as well is straight out of the box, programs on the left, categories on the right. Sorry, that's like single click in a distro. That is just so wrong. When you bring up a menu, there's your categories on the left, or on the left. Let's do it right way on the screen. But you know what I mean? They just had it the wrong way round, and I couldn't cope with it. I mean, I'm using it now. I've been playing with it, as I say, all week. It games well. Nothing crashes. It sorts out all my screens well. I just find it too boring. There's just nothing in there that thinks, oh, I must really, really use this. And for some people, that's going to be fantastic. So if you want a system that's just going to work, is quick, responsive, and looks nice, Zorin OS is for you. It's just not for me.
Well, Zeb, I feel this way. They are pretty much competing with Linux Mint. And I mean, I'm going to go so far as to say they are also competing with Elementary OS as far as how beautiful the system is and how many personal touches that they put into it. Like, for example, when you go to install, how many choices you have of, and I forget the exact wording of it, but it was basically the regular drivers, the NVIDIA drivers, or maybe the latest, the super duper latest NVIDIA drivers. When you go into the grub screen, they have little icons down at the bottom for the keyboard shortcut to go into, say, E for edit, and you know what I mean. These things are all little touches that make Zorin look like it's something that you don't have to sell to people. Like if you were trying to get somebody from Windows, you don't have to sell them on Linux and tell them, hey, how great it is. You just have to show them this. And it speaks for itself. So I think it's pretty nice.
It is a good OS. It's just not for me.
Yeah, no, it's not for everybody. And I'm not saying it's perfect, because there are things that I found, like the menu. You mentioned the menu. It's not exactly set up the way I would like it. But it is a menu that would be really familiar to people coming over. And that's kind of their target market, is to get people from Windows who have never used Linux and using it with Zorin Os. So
does Windows have the categories on the right, though?
Well, I mean, it's Windows 10 now, but I can't remember what was in Windows 7, but it has a familiar look to it.
Windows 7 is where they started with the new screen, where they have the column of actual apps and then have like the start screen that you can, the panel that comes out.
That was Windows 8.
It's more mimicking that. So instead of a start panel, you have the categories. But, you know, a lot of people use the same apps over and over again. So if you just have the main categories set to favorites, all the programs you always use are going to come in right above the start button every time you open it.
I understand the reasons for that. It's just I've always said I'm English. I read left to right, not right to left. So
yeah, but you double click too. So I mean,
it's less about
correct.
It's less about how you read and more about where you're launching it from. If you're launching it from the left-hand side of the screen, it should be laid out as an LTR. If you're launching it from the right-hand side of the screen, it makes sense for it to go the other way.
All right.
Oh, there is a switch in the settings for that.
Is there?
I think so.
I'm not sure. I didn't check if there was a switch in the settings. But there are many improvements to, I believe, to GNOME itself that would appeal to other people besides people that are used to GNOME. Like, it's a GNOME for a regular person, basically. So, Tony, did you get to try Zorin OS?
Yes. I ran it for about 4 or 5 days, and I quite liked it, actually. One thing that I found really different, and it's only a minor thing, but when you put the dock at the bottom to hide, it floats up a little bit off the bottom and a little bit off the sides. And I thought that was really cool, and I think it looked different to every other dock I've ever used. I quite like GNOME anyway, so I didn't have a problem with it. The only thing I didn't like was the theme. The blue highlight was a bit sort of in your eyes, and you couldn't sometimes read some of the text behind it. But if you change that and mess about with it a bit, I thought it was pretty good overall.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. Now, we did start off the beginning of the show saying who was and who wasn't going to review it. So I can't actually remember. But Peter, did you say you was going to have a chat this week or next week?
I said I'm ready for this week.
Go for it, my friend.
So overall, Zorin works fine. Like you said. Installed no problem at all on my Alienware laptop. Once it was installed, I went ahead and put my NVIDIA 340 driver on via the command line, no problem at all. That works great. The touch to click on the keypad on the touchpad works great, no problem. As you said, it's very well polished. The themes, I started off with a light theme. I changed it to a dark theme, tweaked it a little bit, no problem. It works great. I tested some flat packs. They installed fine. After I had to put in a flat tab repo. But once that repo was in, some of the flat packs worked no problem. My only thing, it's not a small thing, Windows keeps getting mentioned. That is, it's a kind of replacement for Windows users to come over to Linux. So I tried installing an exe file, and as an experienced Linux user, I could do that no problem. I knew that it was going to download Wine. I knew it was going to download Gecko and Mono. I knew it was going to go through all these steps. I even installed Play on Linux through the whole process. I put it onto Discourse. But a Windows user would go, what the heck is going on here? What's all this downloading and installing? All I want to do is run my exe file. So Windows users might get a little tripped up there if they're trying it. And that's my only slight negative. But otherwise, it's a very polished distribution. Personally, if I was going to use, and I do use a Ubuntu-based distro called Peppermint, you may have heard of it, and I would rather use that than use Zorin. But Zorin's very polished and very good.
I think Zorin has gone over to Debian now, isn't it? Though, or is it still on Ubuntu?
I think it's on Ubuntu.
It's still on Ubuntu.
Based.
04.
1804.2, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. My bad. Well, thanks very much indeed for that, Peter. Yeah, like you, it's a great OS. It just wasn't for me, I'm afraid. Colin, I think you said next week.
Yeah, next week. Yeah.
No worries. Adam said last week, so he doesn't want to say anything.
No, I'll go ahead and go.
Oh, you would like to go? Oh, Adam, my friend.
Yeah, it's Linux, right? I mean, it's neat. It looks neat, but beyond that, it's just another 1804 to me. Like, it didn't really I wasn't enthusiastic. That's about it.
Well, Adam, you may not be enthusiastic about it, but what do you think of it from the standpoint of bringing people over? Like, is it that kind of Linux distro that would?
No, I think a lot of the people that are going to come over to Linux are generally PC enthusiasts, and they're going to want the latest and greatest. And then when they realize that the stuff that they're getting in the Software Center is older, they're not going to be happy.
Fair enough.
So my question for you, Adam, would be, if it were on top of Silver Blue, would you change your tune?
Good question.
No, I'd still tell them to stay away.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you positive?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right, Eric, sir.
Yes,
Zorin
sir.
OS.
It's all about first impressions.
And
it's beautiful.
See?
I mean, I have to tell you, so I tried it probably 3 months ago. And when 15 came out, and I mean, there's just something really compelling about the package they've put together. I mean, I completely agree. For me, 1804 and LTS release is not ideal. I don't want rolling, but I do, I would like it to be based on each release. And I know at some point in the past, I listened to the Destination Linux podcast they had with him. And at some point in the past, they just made the decision that it was easier to support it on an LTS basis, which, again, I think, for their target audience, that makes perfect sense, right? They've got a stable system. They get, like, to Peter's point, if they go through all the process of setting up Windows applications or anything else, like that, knowing that they have a system that they can then use for years to come makes perfect sense, right? So, again, for their target, to Adam's point, enthusiasts, probably not. They might think that that's going to be, a bad thing. So for me personally, because 1804 does not run well on my laptop, I undertook the challenge of making Ubuntu 1904 basically look like Zorin. So I just found the right extensions and I downloaded their themes and icons, and hey presto, I've got modern or an updated version of Zorin. And it's not to take away anything from them and their team. I would absolutely consider running it if it were based on 1904. So to me, that means that the next LTS will probably work well on this system. And so at that point, 2004, it could be, that could be a solid choice for me. But I will say, having run it on GNOME 3.3.2 on Ubuntu 1904, looking like Zorin, I really, really like the layout, their themes. It's so clean. It just really works very, very well. I've been using it for over a week, And for me, for GNOME, that's usually about the point at which I can't stand it anymore. And right now I'm just loving it. Like I've got the light green theme on. It's just something about it that is just, it's, again, that first impression, it's just so pretty, so well put together. And it makes GNOME into the things that, if it, just like other distributions do, it fixes all the things that I would normally complain about using, so.
You feel when you're running this, you feel like it's a modern OS. That's my take on it.
To me, it's as clean as a Mac OS experience. If you call Windows 10 a clean experience or a modern experience, then I think it's definitely on par with those, industry standard or what people would consider to be like Mac versus Windows. Like if I sat someone down in front of this, I'd be very confident that they would find it appealing and probably very easy to use.
So we're just going to call it GNOME for the average person.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, I considered, had it run, I would have considered buying the Ultimate Edition just to try out all the different features and what they considered, what they gave you in the software installation and the different layouts and all those things. And again, if 2004 runs well on the system, then I probably will look at that.
Very nice. Chris, you're going to go next week. Dan Simmons, you want to go this week or next?
I was a little busy this week, but I didn't manage to install it. I feel like I could give it a better shake if I went next week, though.
Dude, we'll go next week. No worries. Right. Barbara, you did try it.
Yes, I did try it. I got it installed very easily. I installed it on my ThinkPad W550S, and it installed perfectly. The video worked perfectly. It just, and I understand what Zeb was saying about it being boring. Well, being the person who likes things just to work, I actually was very impressed with it. And it's one of those things that I agree with what Eric said about not being on 1904. It is on 1804, and it's funny because just the other day I upgraded my backup laptop to Ubuntu Mate 1904. So that would be the only thing is the software. That means then you have to go out and get the PPAs and install the updated versions of things. But other than that, I think it is a very, very nice distro. It didn't crash. It worked perfectly. I was thrilled it actually saw my video cards properly. It just worked. And that to me is really important. If suddenly Ubuntu Mate disappeared and went away, I would seriously consider Zorin. And I just, even though it is GNOME, they do make it so that it goes beyond just that thing, the things that I don't like about GNOME. And I could set it up to the way that works for me. So I was really pleased with it. And I think they did a beautiful job. And it's also something I think you could take somebody who wants to get away from Windows. You could take Joe Schmo, the average user, and put him on Zorin and feel safe.
Yep.
And that is really important. I don't think you'd have to do a lot of support with them. And that's why Zeb felt it was boring, because it will work for a newbie. And that is wonderful. Get it going, set it up the way they want. I like the fact I could actually have a purple theme without having to download special, specific themes and all that kind of stuff. And I really liked it. And I thought they had a very nice package, the way it all looked put together. It was very elegant and refreshing, if that makes any sense. So I liked it.
Well, there is so much polish to this operating system that just like the enabling the dark and light theme during depending on your time of night. Like right now I have it set, obviously it's nighttime now, so the taskbar panel goes dark transparent, the apps go dark, and it just goes by the whatever time zone you're in. Mm-hmm. And that just adds one more, and this is, and all the things that we're talking about tonight about Zorin were not all true before in previous releases. Like, it didn't have that polish before, in my opinion. It had different things about it. Like the idea of what they were going for was different. But I would have been in Zeb's boat then to say it's not for me. I didn't care for the theming. I didn't care for a few things about it. But this release is different than past releases. So
yeah, I just liked how they did it. I think they did an excellent job, and it's very clean and it's very elegant. And I think that's what I liked about it. And it worked, and it didn't crash. And those are things to me that are important. And I know all my software would work. I would just have to get some things that are a little bit more updated.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually glad you mentioned that nightlight, Rocco, because that's
one
thing I forgot to mention.
That's cool.
I turn it on, and it doesn't work on one of my monitors. Only my left monitor and my middle monitor go dark. The one on the right goes bright. And I've yet to find a nightlight other than, what's the one that you can install yourself? Redshift or something?
Yeah.
That's the
Redshift.
only one that will affect all three monitors the same. If I turn this on now, middle's gone nice and dark, the left's gone nice and dark, the right-hand one has stayed bright. And
Are
on
you
another
using
system,
different
it might be
connectors
the
for
right
them?
hand. Say again?
Are you using different connectors for them?
No, they're all on DP, and the two monitors on the outside are identical monitors.
Okay.
It must just have an issue with multi-monitor support.
Possibly.
I was thinking maybe it's such a big setup, it's in a different time zone.
I love you, Nate.
Yeah.
Oh, that was well played.
Moving swiftly on. Dave, did you want to go this week or next week?
Next, please, because I got a couple hours in the live environment, but I'd really like to get it on hardware before I give it a real shake.
Of course. Shikin, the master of design. What did you think?
I'm going to give it a small little thing here. One, it's beautiful. It really is. First impressions, as Eric said, it delivers on that front. I think it's a solid release in terms of stability. I didn't have any issues with it, just like Barbara said. And one thing I really like about it is GNOME can get pretty weird when it comes to having a lot of extensions installed. They did a great job at making sure that they weren't entering that territory of instability. And the only thing that I want to see is, because they've delivered this beautiful, clean experience that just kind of works, and I want to see how their support stands up. If something does fail, if something isn't working, how much resources do they have available to support users in that event? Since they do offer a paid product, I want to somehow put that to the test.
Mm-hmm. So how does it stack up against Elementary, would you say?
Well, I mean, of course, I still prefer Elementary, especially with 5.1 coming up here very, very soon. However, I would say that it's definitely, especially if you're more interested in familiarity, if you don't really want to just kind of change up your entire desktop paradigm, and you want something that just feels natural to you in the sense of Windows or Windows-like OS, it's definitely, I think, a better choice.
So you heard it here first. Elementary is unnatural.
Thanks, Seb.
Set him up for that one.
You walked straight into that one, yeah. Tyler, now you're sat still. God, I was going like, where's he going? Are you ready to do Zorin, or do you want to go next week?
Nah, I'll go next week. I'll just sit here and enjoy my cold brew, listening to you guys.
No problem at all. So we missed Dave, got Chicken and Cake. Jonathan, are you there, my friend?
Can you hear me?
We certainly can. Do you want to go this week or next week?
I can go this week. So yeah, I tried out Zorin and a KVM. I don't have any spare hardware to throw it on. It under the hood doesn't look too terribly different than Ubuntu, but I think where it shines is really those GUI interface changes. When I was poking around, it felt like it was much easier to get to different settings in GNOME to change it. Visually, I thought it looked incredible. I really, really liked the things that they had. I liked the variety of things they had, but they all were really good looking. And really, I feel like the thing brings to the table, I guess, is just a modified GNOME experience. Someone who has used Windows, this would be a bit more familiar to them than like vanilla GNOME. and it's an option for someone coming to Linux. So that's really the big thing it brings to the table, and I like it. I think it's a pretty decent distro.
All right, very nice. Bill, sir, did you want to go this week or next?
I can go this week.
Do it.
So I'll start off with my little game that I played with it. When Zorin first came out, there was a lot of hype, so I got and used it. So when you guys did the challenge, I just decided I'd go Zorin Lite. And I was surprised that, I'll talk about regular Zorin in a minute. I was surprised it was still based on Xenial. And I know they're working on it. So I just decided, what the heck, I'll update it to 1804. I'll put the hardware enablement stack on there. That worked, and it actually worked really well. Re-enabled all the repository PPAs. It works. It looks really nice. And I said, what the heck, I'll upgrade it to 1904. That worked, but there were some instability issues. And then I'm like, what if I put it on 1910? And then, like we talked about in the forum, I killed it just like it was a red shirt and I was Captain Kirk. But I mean, and then just to talk a little bit more about the Xfce interface, it actually looks very pretty.
Wait, did you say Xfce and pretty in the same sentence?
I mean, that's one of the that's like one of the annoying things, Rocket. It's like, take like what Silent does with it.
I'm just
and there's a
teasing
lot
you,
of
Bill.
people. Oh, I know. There's a lot of people that say it's ugly, and it is. I mean, stock
Sometimes
default
it can be, yeah.
is maybe not the prettiest thing, but you can make it beautiful, and there are some designers that really do. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they do when they update that to their latest version. But to move to the GNOME version, and Adam knows that I love GNOME. I love GNOME as much as he does, but it's still GNOME. So I could use it for, just a little bit, and then all the GNOME-ness makes me annoyed. But as a new user who's coming in and popping it in, I mean, it looks really good. It's got beautiful theming, beautiful desktop, and you could actually fool somebody if you just tweak the panel just a little bit. They wouldn't really know they were on a Linux machine. But the problem is, how many people are you really going to just throw that on for? Where Elementary, and as much as Chicken loves it, has a better experience for people, I think, who don't know Linux if they're going in. And if I was really going to do a modified GNOME, why wouldn't I just do Pop! OS? Because you're going to get support. They support you out of the box, even if you don't have a System 76, not like other companies that you might buy their hardware from. They're going to actually support you using Pop! OS on a Dell, and they're going to give you support. So if I'm going to run GNOME and I'm not going to use stock Ubuntu, why would I choose anything but Pop? But the guys did a beautiful job, and like Chicken said, the question is, if I'm going to spend some money on support, what am I going to really get out of it? But I want to give them credit. They made it really beautiful, and they've done some real great design stuff.
Well, Bill, to your point about why would you do that, for me,
Yes.
that would be no question. I mean, I'm running Pop! OS. I would suggest everybody run Pop! OS, but not everybody likes that whole default GNOME paradigm. So that's why I said Zorin kind of makes GNOME usable for people who don't like GNOME.
Rocco, I realize I've made a terrible mistake.
What's that?
And I have to fess up to it. So initially, I installed Zorin's themes and stuff on Ubuntu 1904, but then I realized I should try Pop.
See?
And that's what I'm actually running and have been for over a week now. It's Pop 1904 with Zorin theming. So I apologize. I've made a grave error there, but it is a lovely. Your point is completely correct. Like Pop, the framework of Pop, and then just putting some different themes on it. Beautiful.
But see, like I said before about Pop! OS, I mean, me being a theme guy, I have the default theme, and I have had the default theme since it's been on. It for some reason it is a really appealing, and it's got that. It's almost like you buy into the whole idea of Pop! OS, and when you do, you're into it fully, including the themes. It's like you're running Pop! OS, so you expect it to look this way. So.
Everything
So,
from
yeah.
the download page to the installer to actually using it is this beautiful, seamless experience. It really is.
It's amazing, dude.
So
Yeah,
tune
I'm
in
not
next
gonna-
week for part 2 of Pop OS.
Rocco,
I installed the Zorin themes on my Pop install as well. I'm enjoying that light blue thing a lot that came with Zorin.
What were you gonna say, Bill?
no, it. I hate to bring it up because it gets beat up in this stupid manner, but it becomes one of those things of, would they be better served by instead of making an operating system, is really just focusing on offering like a one-click, this will install on your GNOME system that you have, boom, it'll install all of our packages instantly.
So
that's just a question. I'm not trying to go, does it need to exist? So someone will make a stupid video and put it on YouTube and say this doesn't need to exist. But it does beg that question of, would that be a better use of their time? Because then they could still offer, would you like to contribute X amount of money to us for these packages? So I don't know. It's one of those things. It's really beautiful, and I really commend those guys for the artistic stuff that they've done.
Well, obviously the company who bought Zorin OS doesn't think that, so I think they're quite happy with what's happening at the moment.
Yep. Well, Jackie said in chat the only issue he had was with Zorin OS was the function and the F8 and F9 keys didn't work. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, or they have any feedback on that.
Everything else.
I can't say I've ever pressed F8 or F9 while using it. So
okay, all right. Well, apparently that is supposed to increase and decrease the brightness. I don't know. So, Dan Kelly.
Yes, I did give it a try, and I'm using it right now. My feelings about it are it's very well polished. I was impressed. I started out with it in a virtual machine, and I'm like, hey, this isn't half bad. So I started playing with it some more, and I'm like, do I got some old spinning rust around here I can throw this on and really test it? So I found a drive I could spare, and I installed it on it, and I liked the installer. The installer was quick and easy. I did find some unique things about it, though, that are kind of weird. One thing I didn't like is I love the panel, but I don't like the fact that I couldn't pin anything to it. I don't know if I'm not doing it right or haven't discovered the method, but on all my other distros,
I'm sorry, it's called favorites. I found that too. You have to add it to favorites. It's not what you're used to. It'll drop it in the panel.
Okay, I did find favorites, but I haven't tested it to see if it actually stuck it to the thing because I just found it today. The super key, it does work. It pops up the menu, but it also, if you go into settings, has another unique feature, which you can actually have it set to active overviews, which when you click on the super key, all your windows and programs that you got running will actually open up little boxes all over the screen, and you just click on that one to go to it and use it. So I thought that was a real neat discovery in that area. The theme, I kind of like the themes. The themes were okay. However, I didn't really care for the icons that much, so I installed GNOME Colors, which gave it really nice looking folders. I did get it to crash 3 times, and this is how I was able to do it. I set the monitors so they would power down after 15 minutes. The problem was when I wanted to bring them back, the machine would light up the monitors, but then everything would freeze, and I'd have to reboot the computer. So that was the only crashing issue.
And that happened all 3 times, Dan?
All 3 times.
Kind of sounds like GNOME Shell is crashing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a desktop issue. It does. Other than that, I haven't had any. I got 2 monitors. It works great with them. I get to pick which one's primary and which one's secondary. That ain't an issue. Oh, and another thing is the window manager, like some of the other distros that I've been using, does not have an open as root function in it. So you can like open a particular window in root, like in your filing systems, and open the opt folder for root privileges to drop a package in there to run with your system. Or
Dan, that's for your
modify-
safety, so you don't hurt yourself.
I figured because the thing was made for beginners or people coming from Windows, that's why they didn't put that option in there. If you really want to mess it up, you have to use the command line.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember one other issue that I had, and it's not a big issue, but if anybody tried to use snaps on it, I was able to install snaps, but I would have to restart, or I guess restart GNOME Shell, or log back in, for them to be recognized in the menu itself. And even then, it was a hit or miss whether the icon of the app would be there. It's just a generic icon.
I really didn't use snaps. What I did is I tried the software store first, and I like Thunderbird, and it didn't come with Thunderbird, and I installed the Thunderbird, but it wouldn't read my Thunderbird folder and all the email in it. So I went back to the software center and looked at it a second time, and the version was slightly older than the one that I've been currently using, where it usually says, it said beta in the green box. I'm like, oh. So I installed it and installed Thunderbird from the command line, and then I was able to access my email and everything from the Thunderbird folder. But yeah, the software package manager has a lot of older stuff in it and a lot of stuff that needs to be gone through and looked at. But other than that, I've used this since Monday, and man, it works pretty rock solid other than the monitor issue. And I, unlike other distros that have a suspend function with the power button, I found that Zorin doesn't have that, but you can go into the settings array and actually set your power button on your PC to suspend when you push your power button. Because I rarely totally shut my machine down. I almost always save all the data and just suspend it rather than just shut it off.
Mm-hmm.
So Zorin's been running for about 82 hours since it's been rebooted.
Thank you very much indeed.
That's my take on Zorin. I would definitely recommend it as a possible newbie thing. Again, you know, some of you guys have some concerns with support for it and other, you know, and I agree with that too. But, you know, if I had to show something out to someone that wanted to get off Windows, I would tell them, give Zorin a try or give Mint a try. I got two options here. Or give Peppermint a try. All three of them are great.
I like that. I like that one. You can come
the question
I
was
have Peppermint on a laptop back here, and it's on a 32-bit laptop. And when the power goes out, it doesn't fail to get me on YouTube or get me on one of these channels on batteries. And use my phone as a hotspot.
Nice. Peter,
Zeb,
I was going to say something.
Yeah, the question was asked about the brightness keys on Zorin.
Yeah.
On my Alienware, there's actually F4 and F5 you use the function on, and they actually work great. So
there you go, Jackie.
Yeah. All right, Joe, my friend, are you going this week or next week?
I think I'm going to wait till next week. I've spent time on it, but I didn't write a list down of things, and I want to be fair to it. So,
okay, no problem.
Comment to the F keys. It depends on the system. Mine are F11 and F12, and I don't have to hit function, and they work just fine. So,
excellent. All right, Big Pod, I know you've got a couple of bits you wanted to let us know this week. When you can do it.
Yeah, I tried it, but it is GNOME, it is Ubuntu based, stable, boring. So I said next. Only thing that was bothering me was the slow downloads, which were problematic, but overnight it downloaded. So, but as I said, it was boring to me.
Okay. Ali, I know you want to go next week because you haven't had a chance to look at it this week. You've been too busy building, I think, 2 brand new ISOs for yours, but we can talk about that in a while.
Yeah,
the positivity. Let us have it. Or do you want to do it next week?
I'll do it next
Let's
week.
do it next week.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, then, Rocco, do you want to sum up?
Well, like I said, I pretty much mentioned any small minor issues I had, but the issues that I had were very small and very minor and specific. Overall, Zorin is a beautiful system that you can hand to a Windows user and they will be familiar with where they're at. And I think that's great. And the best thing about it is you're handing them something that out of the box looks beautiful. And I'm telling you, I know, people say, oh, well, we don't need modern things or we don't need this. But when you hand somebody a system like this compared to a regular Linux distro, maybe an older Xfce or something like that, this is going to win out every single time. So
I'm not picking on them specifically, but I will say that this is one of the fundamental problems I have with something like Ubuntu. And I know a lot of people love Ubuntu. And again, I'm not picking on them. The system itself is fantastic. But I think that initial presentation sometimes is just so it just feels odd, And so to make the comparisons, Ubuntu 18.04, would it be any less stable? It's basically the same system. And could you make Xfce look really nice and modern? Of course you can. So I just, to back up what you're saying, I can't express it clearly enough just how the presentation hooked me in. And I'm usually not big on Flash and things needing to look so perfect. But when someone, whoever designed their themes, obviously understands space and, contrast and, their dark themes look good. Their light themes look good. So it just, when you put that kind of effort into the presentation, and you can get someone comfortable that quickly, I think that really speaks volumes.
And to speak to that, generally, I am not a fan of GNOME, the GNOME desktop. But listening to you guys talk, I hadn't even realized it was GNOME.
That's a perfect analogy of what they're doing there.
That's how good they have done.
Yep. So hats off to the Zorin guys and all of the development team. Great job. And we will continue using it this week and work out any other bugs or issues you guys may have. You can talk to us about it in the Telegram group, in Discourse, in Discord, and everywhere else that we're at. I think we're everywhere now because of Eric's hard work. So that's our take on Zorin OS this week. We'll come back next week and talk about it again.
I have one more thing to add. If any one of you running the Zorin right now, go to your .cache folder, GNOME/software, screenshots, and 752 by 423. Inside there, you will find a screenshot of a hex chat conversation.
What? That's from them themselves somewhere.
From them themselves. It's from a channel called Athens. Treasured at Athens Central. Someone took a screenshot and left it in the cache when they shipped this.
How on earth did you find that?
I was looking for the evil gnome.
Okay, so that brings up a point that I want to bring up. And I want to have a discussion on. And that is, how do we find the right balance for having constructive conversations and constructive news items for all of these hacks, malware, exploits, whatever you want to call them? Hold on.
Someone's got their...
That's Allie.
I think it was Allie.
So we have all of these things, like you hear about this evil gnome, and everybody's talking about right now. That's the biggest thing, evil gnome. I haven't seen one actual person infected with evil gnome, but you would think by the news and by the YouTube videos and by everything else that this is the worst thing that's ever happened to Linux. So how do we balance this where we're not being blind and we're not turning our eyes away from being aware and being vigilant on hacks and malware, but that we're not being overblowing everything and becoming just a bunch of tinfoil hats about every little detail that comes out.
Well, I've got one thing to say about Evil Gnome, and I think it's great that they found it. I think it's appalling they didn't tell us which extension it was in.
It's its own extension. You have to download the extension and install it.
Yeah, but which one?
Evil Gnome.
No, that's not. You don't install Evil Gnome by going to the extensions page and installing Evil Gnome. It's supposed to be hidden. It's supposed to be hidden in another extension. But if you do not if you say there's a big security vulnerability in Gnome, it's in an extension, but we're not going to tell you what extension, then as a user, you're now scared and have no idea what happened. It's like there's a virus in an exe file in Windows. Oh my God, there's a virus. There's an exe file everywhere. If you're going to do a security release and there's an actual bug, there's steps you should take. First step is you contact the developer and you send the developer an email and say, hey, I found a bug. Here it is. If the developer does nothing, then you, as a good person, should have the wherewithal to say, okay, I've contacted the developer. Now I'm going to release this publicly. Maybe I'll release it to a security journalist who has some credibility. Instead of, I'm going to go on Twitter and say, VLC has a hack, I'm an expert. When my VLC setup that I'm saying is vulnerable is completely bogus. So you have this entire thing of driving hits to your page. I want to get hits. So I'm going to say X has a virus or Y has a virus. I don't need any credibility. I don't need any proof. I can say this, and all it does is negatively affect that application or that developer. And then there is no price to be paid for it. That developer or that application is still fighting, trying to explain to people that my application, there's no vulnerability, there's no problem, everything is good. But no, I read it on the internet.
Yeah,
I'm gonna expand it a little further and just say the age of the internet and the way that information disseminates and whether or not you trust the source. It can be a personal thing, but I'll tell you that any technical bulletin news like this, if it doesn't come from a reputable source that gives me specific technical details, I do not buy it at first blush. Never. Because I don't know what it is about this industry, about security people in general. I don't know if it's like a fame thing or if they get paid more because they have a published finding or something, but it really bothers me, especially like you brought up the VLC one. So many of these are they're just corner case. You know, is it possible? Well, is that the real question? Because that's not really what you're saying here. You're saying it's the sky is falling. We're all in danger somehow. Everybody should take some immediate action to mitigate this risk. And the reality is that most of these are not the case.
Well, see, there's so much misinformation out there because, Bill, as you said, this is, you had mentioned that this is hiding inside of another GNOME extension. We don't know which one that is. But from what I understood, you had to actually execute a script file in order to have this evil GNOME on your computer. So that's not just simply installing another extension. You have to physically run this script. So that's why I said there's so much misinformation out there.
Named Evil GNOME.
Yeah, and this is why, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we as a community should be more vigilant to not spread these things around until we have the full information on what it is. But it seems like even in our own community, some people want to have like that first video out there or that first thing out there. And before you do that, think about the community in general. This is not something that we should be pushing forward. We should be pushing back and trying to find out the details, the facts about this, and not just throwing it out there like this is the cool thing to talk about.
There's one guy I normally watch, and I can't remember his name now, but I think the podcast is like called Security Now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just having a quick look, and there's not a single video that he's brought out about this GNOME bug thing. And yet it's Steve Gibson, that's the guy.
Yes.
Normally he gives a very good, okay, it might be overly complicated sometimes, but if there's a real security risk, you can normally find it out from Steve, but there's nothing on his website. So,
Zeb, on that point, also I would, if you're going to look, if Threat Post is talking about it, then there's probably some viability to it. But if it is just, and I mean, the one problem is you have security, and there are some awesomely talented people out there, but everybody wants to put a feather in their cap and say they're a hacker and they're awesome. But there is a lot of talent, and a lot of people are just publishing information to help other people. But if you don't go to a good source, like Eric was saying, if there's no technical documentation to say, okay, it's a buffer overflow heap that is a SQL injection, something that tells me what it's doing. If I just say, oh my gosh, Mate terminal is going to destroy my system if I run it, how is it going to do that? Is it there? Give me one little bit of evidence so that I can go to Martin and say, look, there's someone found a bug. It's a major thing. Let's look at it. Or just some person randomly saying something. And that's one of the things maybe we should talk about is what are 10 really good security websites that we recommend to people. That could be a topic later if we all go look at it and say, these are some things to look at. I mean, listen to the Ubuntu Security Podcast. They go over all the CVEs in the first half of the show. The second half, they discuss a security issue. And, most of the time they're going through the CVEs, they explain what it does, how it affects things. So there are real professional, intelligent people in Linux. And I don't know, I'd say some bad things, so I'm going to be quiet now.
Big Pod, go ahead.
First of all, I would like to say that the journalist, I believe it was journalist, who coined the name Evil Gnome shouldn't do his job anymore, because the name Evil Gnome is made to smear the name of the gnome. Even if the name of gnome or the desktop environment isn't very good or very reputable nowadays, it's still made to smear the name of gnome.
Well, the point that one video made was that why would you target, number one, Linux, and then why would you narrow that down to target a desktop environment specifically? I mean, I don't know why.
And then an extension.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mean, what this is all about, but either way, Joe, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm just waiting for you guys to finish.
No, go ahead.
You brought up about VLC earlier. I did have an experience just a few days ago with VLC. Now, was it a hack? Because what happened was I had done a patch update on Mint. Okay, I looked at it and it was a security update, and I thought, okay, so I put it through, and then all of a sudden, about a couple hours later, my computer just, no rhyme or reason, reboot, and I thought, well, that was odd. So it didn't do it after that, and then half an hour later did it again, and then it was fine. And the next morning I got up, took it out of sleep mode or suspend, and it rebooted. And I thought, what's going on? So I ran a manual update through the terminal, and I get this VLC error showing up. And I never use VLC, but it comes in Mint by default. So I took it, I tried doing the updates a couple more times, same error. So I took VLC out, removed it. I ran the update check again through the terminal. Everything was fine, and I haven't had an issue since. Now, because within an hour or so later of that, I see this story post up about a vulnerability in VLC, and I thought, well, is it truly a hack or is it a bug? Because to me, it seemed more like a bug, because one of the errors, there was a string of errors. It said 13 upgrades, and then I get this errors, and it was all an IP address error that was showing up in there, and it wasn't my IP address. So I almost took it more like a bug than a hack. But then I see this story after that talking about a vulnerability, and I thought, what's the coincidence chance of that?
Well,
yeah, but the vulnerability was for an MKV like demux or something, so it was like a third party. And this is the thing, like we say hack. Do note that most tech journalists are just that.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, as an example, like Joe, you mentioned the VLC thing. When you have PC Gamer reporting that you should upgrade VLC, and Rocco, you mentioned it, note your source.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, there's plenty of good sources out there.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
you got Jason Evangelo, who's a great source for Linux. I mean, there's plenty of sources out there, but you don't have to take every source that comes out with an article, because every headline is geared towards causing you to fear about something. And it's ridiculous that when you actually go and read it, then that, oh, well, you not only have to have this computer, you have to actually put your computer outside so people can use it. You also have to stand on one leg, and then you have to put a piece of metal onto the computer so that people can actually make this hack happen. I mean, that's 90% of the cases, and I think that we just let it be overblown. And there's plenty of examples. Go ahead, Eric.
I have two bright spots here. First is, and I'm not going to be nice, but that's okay because I don't want to be in this case. If you want to know which YouTubers not to follow, search for Evil Gnome. Because the list that you get is basically the top offenders who do this kind of garbage YouTube video. That's my first point. The second point is Pop doesn't have GNOME software installed. So if you go to look for that GNOME software cache, it's not there.
Right.
So I wonder if GNOME software is actually a component to this, where if it isn't installed, then this doesn't even work because it's not part of GNOME software. I don't know. I don't care.
Just like to point out that the first result for Evil Gnome is the same guy who said Ubuntu was the devil. So
that's the point I was making. That's exactly the point I was making. Yes.
Chris, go ahead.
Well, the two articles I've seen in the past 12 hours, I guess, both they laid out very specifically saying it's only affecting this, and this, and you have to actively install it, or click on the script for it. So it's not even, it's not like, the I love you virus or something like that. Now what the signals is that we can no longer go around saying, oh, well, we don't get viruses. I mean, that was always not the case to begin with, but anybody who thought that was a fool. But the thing with this is not even really a virus or malware or anything like that. It's more of a Trojan horse, and none of our vulnerability or security scans, even the SE desktop, still wouldn't pick something like this up, because as far as it was concerned, it was just a script.
Yes, but that's what I'm trying to get at, is that most of these things are portrayed as, oh my gosh, if you just browse the web, you could get this. Like, right. It's portrayed that if you run GNOME, you could have this happen to you. But you have to physically run the script. And I have never installed an extension on GNOME that I had to run a script to install it in. I mean, these are just plain security 101 type stuff, where if you just do the normal things and vigilant about these things, like, for example, it's like Proton Mail. There was just an article about Proton Mail and how Russian hackers, whatever, got email addresses of Proton Mail people and were able to try to spoof some of them. And you get this vibe that the story is that basically if you're a Proton, it must not be that safe anymore. If you're a Proton Mail user, you better watch out. But the point is, and if you listen to or read the response from Proton Mail, this was nothing but an ordinary, not ordinary as far as the sophistication of it, but it was nothing but a phishing attack. That's what it was. There was no hack involved. The Proton Mail wasn't hacked. It was basically targeting specific people. It was a very sophisticated phishing attack. But still, you have to click on links and enter your credentials in order for this to work. So what I'm saying is, if you're just vigilant, and that's my frustration is with the community itself, who continues these type of articles and headlines and everything else, and doesn't report to the people honest and upfront with them.
Well, we like to overblow everything, is basically as far as what you're saying.
Yes.
So Rocco, recently there's going to be someone in the YouTube chat that knows what I'm talking about. With a distribution that we all like, someone not too long ago went into their forum and said that their ISOs were infected. This is when, what was it? Hidden Wasp was the big news item. And they said that their ISOs were infected because he downloaded it. He's a security expert, and he ran, the hashes were wrong. And he needed an answer because he was going to go on to this YouTube channel tomorrow and expose the issue. And it comes to this thing about how are you a security expert? And obviously this person was not a security expert. And all it did is throw shade on an operating system and an installer where there was no shade needed to be run. And all it was a hit to try to drive sites to a YouTube channel. And someone that who knows who I'm talking about was very upset with this, and rightly so, because this affects developers. It affects people's jobs, their livelihoods, their lives, and it's throwing shade from people who have no idea what they're doing and really negative without any consequences. It's that whole anonymity of the internet. I can call anything I want, say whatever I want. And I'm sorry to go on that rant. There is a real need to make sure that security threats are acknowledged. Real ones, there are real ones in the world. Linux is targeted, especially on the server side. There are a lot of threats against Linux systems. But the whole thing, just so I can say all this stuff, just to drive hits, is so maddening. And it just is so frustrating. And I feel so bad for all the developers who have to deal with all the aftermath.
Well, I have to go back to my original question. And when we're in this time of having all these headlines and clickbait headlines and all this stuff, how do we keep that balance where we don't turn a blind eye?
So this is obviously a little self-serving, but we have a community of people here at BigDaddyLinux, right? Many of them are very, very highly technical people, developers, system administrators, people who know exactly what they're talking about, who have been doing this for decades. If I saw something like this and I wasn't sure about it, the first thing I would think to do is I'm going to go ask these people. I'm going to say, does this, maybe they hadn't heard of it. Maybe they take a few minutes and look into it. Maybe they go to the sources they know are credible and are able to then give me some legitimate feedback, because it is hard to find good information. There are so many websites, so many different people that purport to be, experts on whatever subject you can imagine. But if it's someone I have a relationship with and someone that I trust, at least I understand they have enough knowledge to make the distinction whether something is legit or not. That's probably where I would start.
I was going to say, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Eric. I think a lot of it is like you were saying, Rocco, we tend to kind of just, as generic Linux users, we kind of just tend to let the people speak for us that shouldn't be speaking for us. And like Eric was saying, I think we need to start speaking a little more loudly than a lot of other people should be given the platform to be speaking as loud as they do, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Even if all we're saying is direct people to the appropriate sources to get valid information.
Exactly. Because all you're going to find is, again, if you Google search anything like Evil Gnome or the VLC stuff, you're going to get a lot of the clickbaity stuff that does not actually go into any detail whatsoever about what it is, other than you should upgrade. That's not technically good reasoning or advice. That's just dumb.
Right. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus as far as, you made this video and this was a clickbait video and blah. My point is not to tell anybody they're wrong, or not. My point is not to throw them under the bus. My point is to let's get together as a community and just stop this ridiculousness of see, not every video out there about Evil Gnome is a clickbait video. Some people were actually just trying to let you know what it was, but there were many more that were just clickbait videos and the sky is falling and oh my gosh, I can't believe you run Gnome.
Like the problem with the way that the internet and social media and everything else works is the clickbaity ones get the play. So if I were to just search for that, Google, or, Google's algorithm, YouTube's algorithm, whatever is going to show me garbage first. It's just the way the internet works, right? So, I mean, that just know your source, and if you don't know, hopefully you have access to people that can help you find the right information. This is a somewhat unrelated story, but my in-laws, who, God love them, are just not computer people. For a decade, they sent me every dumb forwarded email that their friend would say, don't do this, or, and every time I would just go to like Snopes or something and just say, look, guys, this is just a hoax. It's nothing. Or sometimes it was legitimate. But so they knew to come to me to ask that question instead of just, freaking out.
But I think there's also another problem with people in general. They're going to hear that one thing, and then they're going to say, oh, and they're going to panic. They're not going to go check it out. They're just going to tell the next person. And we see that with everything, not just computer viruses and whatever. And since most people are so ignorant about computers, they really are. I mean, the average person doesn't even know how it works, other than plug it in and type. They're going to continue that kind of panic mode based on the clickbait stuff.
Well, I don't know. I think we just need to come together as a community rather than try to separate everything. Nate, give me some positivity here, brother.
GNOME has a very nice polish to it, and I haven't seen any gnomes jump up out of the desktop, so I don't know what everyone's problem is. Until those little evil things hop out, I'm just not going to worry about it.
I was going to say, they haven't been evil at all, right, Nate?
No, not at all.
Evil is a matter of
he asked
opinion.
them. They said they were good.
I'm just going to isolate that part where Nathan was talking about how great GNOME was, and I'm just going to play that over and over again.
From the Plasma user.
Sure.
All right. So let's move on. Who has something they want to bring up?
I do.
Chicken.
Okay, so I really like Debian. And it's really cool. And I didn't used to like it, but now I do. And I can't even. All right. It's so good. I'm really happy about this.
Are you using Buster?
Yeah, I am. I'm really happy.
Are you finding what you want in the repos?
Surprisingly, yes. There was only one thing missing, but like it's because it's only packaged as a Flatpak, and that's because that's what GNOME is doing nowadays. So
I couldn't find over a third of my stuff in the repos. I actually had to go get deb packages to supplement it.
Did you enable the contrib repos and the non-free repos?
Yes, but I did not. I did not backport anything.
Okay.
Chicken, you need to tell everybody what you've been doing.
Yes, what it is.
Come on.
So I set up Debian on like all of my machines because it's what you do when you distro hop. It's not just one machine; it's all the machines.
You could do all of them.
And I was talking to Tyler about Matrix and stuff like that. Being all skeptical and salty as I do, and he was like, there's this really cool client called Fractal. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. But it's only a Flatpak. So I was like, all right, I'll just replace all of my applications with Flatpaks. So I ripped out like 60 deb packages from my install and replaced them all with Flatpaks. And now I'm running a nearly fully Flatpak system on Debian. Ever since
Silverblue.
A fully Flatpak system on Debian.
Yeah.
Chicken is packing.
I like that.
So you're leaving Elementary OS for Debian, is that what you're saying?
Well, I can't publicly say that. I still love Elementary, and I'm still donating to them. Like I'll still be like giving them all my sweet money, but Debian is what I'm using, and it's really nice, and I can see what.
So you really wiped Elementary off
of every single machine.
You bulldozed it?
Oh.
I even reinstalled 3 of my servers with Debian.
What desktop environment you running, Chicken?
GNOME.
GNOME, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a real terrible person running GNOME.
I've been on the Debian trail for the last couple of weeks at the moment. with some videos and stuff I've been putting out for Debian, and I'm finding it quite good too. I think the new Debian is coming to sort of more of the age of latest technology and caught up a little bit now than what Stretch was. So, yeah, I'm finding it pretty good too, I must say.
Yeah, I've had zero issues with hardware support. I mean, I guess it's shipping with like 4.19 as the kernel, which means my AMD hardware works. You know, my Ryzen chip is totally.
So how long are you going to go before you have an elementary withdrawal attack?
Oh, honestly, I've been tempted, especially with all the news about 5.1 coming out. It looks
it's going to happen. You know it.
I know it is. He won't be able to handle it.
Nope.
His hands are going to start shaking. His voice is oh.
Barb, you're describing this like you know this somehow.
Just because he's such a fanboy. That's
so,
what happens. Look what's happening to him now.
I was going to say, Rocco, do note one fangirl to one fanboy.
Right.
Exactly. I know from what I speak.
So I love how it all stemmed from discussion of, hey, try this one application, but it's only a flat pack. He replaces everything with flat packs. And then next thing I know, on my ThinkPad, which still has Debian on it after 3 weeks, I'm replacing most of my applications with flat packs.
Oh my gosh.
And it works great. And
so the moral of the story is Tyler is fully responsible.
So you're both in trouble here.
Yeah.
So what experience I noticed is that with GNOME applications, if you install a GNOME application as a flat pack, the launcher will actually override and launch the flat pack instead of the dead package, so you don't have a duplicate entry.
So tell me, Chicken, Tyler, whatever, what is the benefit of this, or is it just because you can?
So one benefit is that some of the GNOME applications that I replaced, instead of running an older version of like, let's say GNOME Weather 3.26 or Gedit 3.30, both of those are now running at 3.32 because they're installed as flat packs. So I've got the latest version of a lot of the GNOME software that I'm using on that laptop with a static GNOME shell base and static Debian base.
This is what I've been saying about distributions. More and more to me are becoming about what runs well on my hardware. If I have Flatpak, snaps, app images, and I can get the latest 5 applications that I use every day, it's way more about how does it run? Do I get the best battery life? Do all of my function buttons work? Like all of the stuff that hardware has to support, right? And once you find that distro, you can do just about anything with it. Now, granted, it takes a little bit of knowledge and understanding. Do I expect everyone to replace their apps with Flatpaks? Not really, but you can do it.
Well, it is a universal operating system, so it only makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right, universal operating system, universal packaging format. What's that?
Well, let me switch gears here for a little bit. My friend Steve, who emails in all the time, is rivaling me for breaking things. I mean, I think he's broke more things in the last week than I have all month. Just saying, Steve. Sorry, brother. So there's this thing that I saw about Ubuntu Budgie wanting to make a settings uploader, basically a cloud sync for your Ubuntu Budgie settings. My question is, what do you guys think about this idea of uploading your desktop settings to the cloud somewhere?
That's the key, right? Where's the somewhere?
I don't know. I don't think all the details have surfaced. Vash, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't want to upload it to the cloud, but if you give me the option to kind of combine those all into some kind of zip or something like that I can put on wherever I want to host it, I'm more interested in that.
Yeah.
I like Vash's idea. That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, Firefox has a lot of resources to throw at, like something like Sync, where if, no shade against Budgie, they're great guys, but that's like a bunch of security issues, a bunch of privacy issues, and if they just offered me something I could save everything to a zip file and then throw that wherever I wanted to. And then my next Budgie install, I just grab that zip file, boom, it's, using it like is yet another dot file manager. That would be awesome. We actually need that. Linux needs that.
And I actually
who is typing right now?
Big Pod.
Okay.
Could be me.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I can't think when there's banging on the keyboard in the background.
I was thinking to say something. But go ahead.
I want to say Destination Linux was talking about another OS that was doing, or another distro that was doing that. Maybe Endeavor, but I'm completely blanking on which.
It was Deepin.
It was Deepin.
That's it.
So I think Justin makes a good point in the chat. He said personal cloud, yes. Public cloud, no. So I feel like one of the things would be control over which cloud you use or where the data is stored when it's kind of put back there. So
I thought that I heard that, but I mean I don't want to. I shouldn't say this but I thought it was something to do with like GitHub or something like that. Like that's.
Well, that's what I was asking. Isn't GitHub essentially a place to put your dot files on a cloud?
Yeah, a lot of people have a repo of their dot files that every time they install an OS somewhere, they just pull down all their dot files from GitHub so they don't have to recreate them every time they install a new OS.
Actually, that Dustin from Ubuntu Budgie is one of those guys that has his own GitHub repo or whatever to pull all of the config files down. And so if he needs to reinstall Budgie or do something, he just pulls them all down and he's back to up and running. So
yeah, that is actually really good to do. I have that as well, but it's currently in private form because it's really, really, really bad.
Now, this wouldn't take the place of backing up your software. It wouldn't take the place of backing up your files. It would just basically be the Budgie settings themselves, from what I understand, like your desktop layout, the themes, and whatnot. So,
I think that it would if you understood what the dot files were doing, right? If you completely Rocco, you've done a lot of videos on Plasma and like how to use dot files to save configurations, apply configurations, stuff like that. So right now it's kind of a dark art in the sense that the random person is not going to know which files I need, which ones do I edit. So if there was at least a tool to say, these are the files that, control the layouts of your system and you can take them and transport them somewhere else. Does it have to be Budgie specifically? I don't know. But the idea of it, I mean, it would open up an entirely new sort of possibility. So it is a great idea. Would there be security concerns? I don't know, because like you're saying, if it's just the desktop layout, is there really anything sensitive necessarily?
Well, that's what Don asked in chat. Will it be personal data, passwords, or just general settings? I would think it's just general settings.
Yeah, because people put their dot files out on GitHub, and that's freely available. If there was anything sensitive in there, they wouldn't do that. I mean, so I don't think you'd have to worry necessarily about that. I mean, you'd have to worry about where you get them from. Someone might be able to do something malicious inside of a dot file. I don't know, possibly. So I wouldn't want to just.
You would want to be careful which dot files you put up there, because some of that's going to have sensitive stuff for sure. Okay. But yeah.
But how would they, as a distribution, and maybe I should just be asking them this, but I mean, I'm just like talking out loud. How would they, as a distribution, know or separate which dot files they would take and which ones they wouldn't? Because some could have personal information in it.
You would certainly need some kind of account system, probably Ubuntu's SSO, if I'm not mistaken. That would be the most logical way of doing it, since they already have an account framework. And then from there, I guess, I would assume they package everything up instead of having them all sprawled out in like a folder somewhere. And then that's marked hashed or whatever, so they have the right one.
Right.
And that's what they essentially serve to you. The
question is, would you guys use it?
I would, but I feel like I wouldn't need it as often as a normal user might if they are messing around with things constantly.
Well, if you're doing the full spectrum distro hop where you're doing 6 different machines,
yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you got one set up the way you liked and wanted to transport it, that would be pretty cool.
Think about this: if Elementary decided to implement this, and they said, "Hey, Chicken, we're gonna have all of your settings from Elementary." The one setting that you're allowed to change in Elementary, we're going to upload to the cloud, and you can have that back with you.
Well, I feel like in Elementary's case, it's much more important than it would be for Ubuntu Budgie, because in Elementary, up until let me just say that it's a work in progress.
Right.
When it came to upgrades from version to version, you had to reinstall. There's no sort of upgrade path. So it was much more important, I think, for Elementary to have up until the near future than it is in particular for something like Ubuntu Budgie, because there is an upgrade path. So I feel like it would definitely be crucial for that kind of OS.
Big Pod?
I personally wouldn't use this sort of program because I do it myself to my personal GitHub, but I would recommend it to other people if it would be distro agnostic and desktop agnostic, and if it would have sort of a control program where you can decide which file or which folder in .config you want to upload. Otherwise, I would say no to it. If it would just go across the spectrum of whole .config and just upload it to some random server.
I don't think they would do all of the .config files, because like these guys have been saying in chat, you know, you got Google Chrome that stores passwords and stuff in the whatever. There is sensitive information in files. So they're not going to have blanket files, but they have to have it somewhat usable for people. So they're not going to allow, I don't think they would allow you to pick like specific, like, hey, we're going to list you every file that's on your system and you pick the ones. They would probably, to me, have random categories like desktop settings, you know, themes, and back up those things.
Could we consider the possibility
in CSS files anyway instead of files?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of that, Dave.
Wouldn't a lot of those settings be in cascading style sheets CSS files and not files anyway?
I honestly don't know the answer to that.
We could certainly consider the possibility that we don't need to necessarily back up files at all. Perhaps all of the settings could be exported separately and then put in like G settings and whatnot instead of .config files, because that's like it's just a mess.
So maybe it saves it in both places, so that you've saved it to the cloud and you've saved it to your local config, and then you can pull it back.
Yeah, actually, I just thought of something, and I'm not trying to cross promote here, but Jason Evangela's new podcast, Linux for Everyone, he actually made a post in his Telegram group about we should pick some kind of project to get behind or to come up with an idea or something like that. And just hearing us talk about this makes me think that this would be a cool idea for someone to sort of try out and see if you could come up with a way to, you know, export your settings out to a file and then be able to import them and write them. Whether or not that's the right place, I don't know, but I'm going to make that suggestion to him.
Big Pod.
If it is specifically for Budgie desktop, if they are just specifically for Budgie desktop, they wouldn't even have to touch the .config folder, because Budgie has, if I remember correctly, Budgie has all settings in G settings thing, what is Linux equivalent of registry on Windows.
Right. Well, I'm not claiming to know all of what Ubuntu Budgie is doing. They might not even be touching anything that's personal or whatever. I'm throwing it out there as something to talk about because I think it's an awesome idea. The idea of being able to back up your settings from a desktop environment and then redo them once you reinstall is an awesome idea, I think. And coming from somebody who switches distros a lot, that's something that I would definitely want to use.
And what's incredibly...
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I saw Popey make some sort of comment earlier this week about Ubuntu 1, was there something that they had that was similar to this, or was that just files?
I think way back in the day they did like file hosting of some sort. Or
Yeah, way back in maybe 2011, 2012 is when they
No,
started.
I know about the file hosting part, but Popey the way I read his comment was this has been done before.
Yeah, and if you had more than one machine, this is what I found. If you had more than one machine running Ubuntu, you could compare, and then this one's got these apps, those apps, and then you could actually get the config files and everything else.
I was going to say basically you could clone an existing machine.
Exactly, and it would just.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So why did they stop?
That I used. It was handy.
His comment was because there were things like Dropbox, and they weren't going to compete with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, quick question. Are we not trying to reinvent the wheel here? Because when we've had multiple developers on Destination Linux, one of the questions we ask is, if you have a brand new machine, what's the first thing you put on them? And they all talk about downloading their profiles, their dot files or whatever.
Yep.
So where are they storing them now? How is it that these guys know about all these little tools, yet all the clever guys in general don't seem? I mean, where are they storing their files that they can just buy a brand new PC, put all their stuff on, load up their configs, and away they go?
Most of us just use Git.
Yeah, just stick them, or maybe they've got them on an external drive or something like
But
that.
it's a little more technical than most users are going to want to do. So that's why it's usually developers. Like I said, Dustin does this and has this set up and has had it set up for a long time. But he's a technical guy, and he has no problem with Git and doing it through the terminal and all this other stuff.
So this is just an attempt to make it simplified for the average user.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How many times is the average user going to reinstall their system and need all their .file set up again?
Well,
Are
if
they
they're new
even
to
gonna
Linux,
know what it
probably quite a
means?
because
Okay.
they're trying new things. I feel like people who are new to Linux or people who are still trying things out might do it pretty frequently.
Okay.
And I don't.
I would have to disagree, because most of the people that I talk to that are coming over to Linux, they want a web browser, they want a media player, and that's it. And as long as those things work, they really don't care what the rest of the system does or looks like.
My friends are kind of like me. They're really picky and annoying. So,
Well, I think that there's
Some kind of
people.
Windows files on.
I think there's a user base of people that are maybe not brand new, but maybe not so technical that they've got into Git or downloading dot files that this would appeal to. And I'm not saying it's the best idea ever or the worst idea ever. I think it's one more thing that would make the Linux desktop appealing. Big Pod.
Turnkey solution is what they're trying to make. Basically, one click or couple of clicks, that's it. Most of us use Git or GitHub or some GitLab, something like that. Most of us have then scripts written that automatically download and populate it. So it's, again, a turnkey solution. But that is time. If someone made such a customizable turnkey solution that you would select and then upload to whatever you want, that would be a great thing.
All right, so let's get a vote of how many people.
Wait,
show
before we do that, can I just let Dan talk, because he's been raising his hand for like 5 minutes.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking, I'm not a big fan of cloud anything. Why can't they just make a simple tool that puts all your stuff on a flash drive for your config?
Well, there are tools for that, like Deja Dupe will do that. There are backup utilities that will handle that.
Yeah, CloneZilla's my friend.
But I think this is... Go ahead, Dan.
9 times out of 10, when I bork a distro, I just reinstall it fresh and redo it anyways, because I got it overbloated with a bunch of stuff that I'll never use.
Then this is probably not for you, Dan.
I was going to say, basically, they're going for like that mobile type, like when you log into an new Android phone, all your apps that you had on your last phone download and all. They're going for that kind of crowd.
Chris, what do you want to say, dude?
Okay. I was just trying to get attention to pass it over to Dan. So.
Oh, okay.
Rocco, just before you go, I just wanted to say that Ferran's been doing something similar on his operating systems for quite a while. He's been pulling in configs for setups for quite a while. So, and Ubuntu Budgie has already in there, they have a config setting where you can change the whole. They have certain themes that you can preset already in their distro. So I don't know how Ferran does it. I think he pulls from his website. I think he SourceForge or something. He's been doing that for a while.
Well, we're going to take a vote, but Barb, can you ask the cat what their vote is? All right, so let's do a show of hands, especially for you, Vash and Jonathan and Bill. A show of hands for who would use this functionality in a desktop environment, and who would use this? All right, and Bill, Jonathan, Bash, would you use this?
Frank's put his hand up.
Yeah.
I would.
Or John,
you would,
put your
Bash?
hand up.
I would.
Okay, Jonathan?
I'm sorry. I got up. I didn't hear the whole conversation.
Would you use the functionality of backing up your desktop settings to the cloud if it was offered to you?
Yeah, actually, back in the day, the way I'd work with certain configs is I would drop it in something like a Dropbox and symlink it. So, yeah.
All right, and who wouldn't use this type of functionality? Just so we can get a quick show of hands. So 6 people would not use it. So
Can I provide another use case to Zeb here?
Do it.
So in Windows, a lot of times what happens is it saves like your wallpaper, your themes, or how you have your colorizers and stuff set up. If you get a new machine and you decide to pop Ubuntu Budgie on it, one of the things that maybe it would make easier is it just kind of duplicates that kind of setup, similar to what Dark One, I always forget your real name, I'm so sorry. Matt was saying with Android. So if you get a new device, or let's say you are doing it for like a test or something, it should just make it a lot easier to copy over.
It could do. I guess in my use case, I've installed so many distros over the years that I can install PEP in 35 minutes and have every application and everything how I want it straight out of the box in half an hour.
That's madness.
It would probably take me more time to work out how to back up my configs and then remember which program I'd backed it up to, where I'd put it, and then download it and put it on. By the time I'd wasted 15 minutes doing that, my system's nearly set up.
But what if, Zeb, in the welcome menu, when you installed the system, there was a button that said, pull in all my configs. Boom.
That
and
would be fantastic.
And in 3 minutes, you had all your system set up.
So on Peppermint, that would be fantastic. But then I'd forget and install Gentoo and try and pull in all the shafted. And that's what a lot of the average users will do. They will think, oh, I saved up my settings, but that was on KDE Neon. You've now got, I don't know, Silver Blue on here. How is that going to help them? That will just completely mess it up.
Well, it would be...
Configs actually transfer over really well.
I mean, it would be specific to Ubuntu Budgie, and I would think that it wouldn't be like, I would think it would be significantly specific to each distro. So it wouldn't be the same. It's not like you could take a Plasma desktop and then just download all your configs to.
So what, the
Xfce.
program would rename it based upon your desktop environment?
It'd have
would
to
it
be.
just be called Zeb's config?
I honestly don't know how it would work, Zeb.
Run with the Dolphin says...
Dolphin said in the chat that you could run the risk of overriding your new defaults, though.
Yes, that's the point. The point is overriding the defaults so you can have the ones that you set up.
I think he means perhaps new features in the desktop.
Yeah,
or like
I was just teasing, dude.
Yeah, that would only work if you was going from Plasma to Plasma.
Yeah.
Or GNOME to GNOME.
Yeah, but how would the average user know?
Although you're the configs, like if you're always using Firefox and the distro comes with Firefox, all that could come down and so on and so forth to individuals. But for the desktop itself, we're all using different desktops. There's GNOME users, Plasma users, me, Trinity. So it wouldn't work for that. Because I could put my Trinity configs up, download the Plasma desktop, and then it's just basically what they give me for Plasma.
Well, no, but each time you install a desktop, you generate a new set of .dot files so that you only pull down the one for the desktop you're installing at that time. Because I have dot files for GNOME, for KDE, for Xfce.
I see what
And
you're
how do
saying.
you differentiate?
Yeah, of course.
Dave, how do you differentiate other than it's in a different folder?
I just choose which ones I symlink in from my information drive, depending on what desktop I have.
Yeah, so you know what you're doing. Lots of other people won't. So this tool would need to be really, really clever. Chris, you've been really patient, mate. What's up?
Well, basically, I've been keeping my my configs on a flash drive. So when I install, I have a script that pulls them down. But the thing that that I see on this is that we're all thinking single user. I'm always thinking in the environment or the enterprise environment, because that's basically what I'm building here for at the museum. And so a lot of this, I end up wiping out my users' config files by just putting everything in Skell. And at least the stuff that I want to have on their desktop in Skell. And so it's basically one thing. It's done. Then when they log on for the first time, if I have let's say a new version of Fedora or whatever running on the system, suddenly they're cursing my name out because they can't find the shortcut that they had set up.
So here's a good question from Mark in the chat as well, Mark Greaves. He said somebody's got a problem with their system, so they reinstall it, and then they pull all their configs down. And it was actually their configs that messed up their system in the first place. All they've done is put their
it's a good troubleshooting step, really. I mean,
I feel like if that's the problem, the real issue is the desktop. The desktop shouldn't have, like, if a config with like a desktop tweak or setting is that broken, it shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah, but the average user doesn't know that, and they're just
right. I know, but I don't think Budgie's in that position where they're that screwy for it not to work.
And most users don't pay attention to the little changes they make to the desktop before they find it's broken.
And Rocco, I think that's the time to go.
And well, the last thing I'm going to say is this is just a concept idea right now. So this is not let's overanalyze it with Plasma versus this desktop or whatever. This is just a concept. They would like to do this, and I think it's a great idea. But everybody gets a last word. PC.
Enjoy yourselves, people, next week, because I'm going to be sunning it in Malta, so I won't be around.
Cool. Terrible.
No.
Vash, last word.
That was a good one.
Did we kill Vash?
Vash, are you there, sir?
You bet.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry about that. But yeah, thanks for the stream as always. And apparently I was one of the first 100 to get the Pinebook Pro pre-order, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
very nice. You will come on and talk about it then, right?
I don't know.
Come on, man.
Could be classified information.
Don't be hiding. Don't be keeping it from us. Tony, last word.
I'd just like to say, same as most weeks, Rocco, thank you for doing this. It was a technical conversation tonight, so some of it went over my head, but I didn't have a lot to say about any of it, but it's a learning curve. Have a nice holiday, Zeb. We'll miss you next week. It won't be the same without you. And that's it.
Awesome. Peter, last word.
Just want to say I did support you on Twitter with Zeb and others. I had problems before with CyberPower. I will never use them either. But my System 76 Filio is fantastic. And Emma will love you if you go with them.
Yes, I agree. Colin, last word.
Thanks for the stream, Rocco. And Zeb, have a nice holiday. Looking forward to just messing around with Zorin next week. So that should be pretty good.
Adam?
Thanks for the show. It's good times. I enjoy seeing all you wonderful people. I don't know if you enjoy seeing my orange room, but good times. Thanks for the show.
Eric?
What can I say? This is the highlight of my week, as always. Great group of folks. Makes me endlessly happy to see you all and talk to you all. And I'll just end my stint here with just saying that we've been doing a lot of work on Discourse Forum. We've got Telegram. We've got Discord. I'm working on a new version of the website that should be out very soon. So please come join us on any of those that you feel comfortable. Would love to hear from you if you aren't already. And hopefully I will get to say hi to you then or again next week. Have a great week.
Very nice. Chris.
Well, one of the things is I was taking notes during the show, and that was why I wanted to go next week with the with my review of Zorin, because I can I never remember everything I want to put down, but this gave me a good basis to further test it and see if I can come up with some solutions or problems. So far, I haven't had any major problems with it, which is surprising. But always, one thing, remember to back up and be aware of what you're installing on your systems. I mean, this whole evil gnome thing, you know, the keylogger function and stuff like that is not something that you're going to fix or know about unless you're looking for things like that. And the last thing I wanted to say was Dreamwolf was right. Smash that like button. I know that right now we have 70 in chat and we only have 6 likes. Come on, guys, let's get that a better ratio. So hope to see you guys next week. Thanks, Chris. Dan, last word.
Thank you as always, Rocco, and thanks to Eric for all the work he's been doing on the website and Discourse and whatnot. And thanks for Zeb for co-hosting. As always, enjoy the conversation. Good information this week. So thanks a lot. Look forward to next week.
Well, I will put one in for Eric. I know we've been talking about how much work he's putting in, but he has been putting in a ton of work. And if you look at the staging website versus the regular website, it's like
there's going to be more.
An 8-year-old made the first website and a professional did the second website. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Barb.
Okay, as always, I want to thank you, Rocco, and Eric. You're doing a great job with the website, so I'm enjoying that. And this is my virtual lug, and I just love it. It's time I get my something dropped. Cat. It's how I get my Linux fix every week. So thanks, everybody.
Dave.
Thank you, Rocco, Zeb, Eric, and Dan. And because it wouldn't be Biddle without hearing it at least once, Drogger OS.
Somebody wondered why we didn't hear that. Low latency.
Funny you should say that, because Kevin in the chat said, I can't believe we've not had one mention of a low latency kernel.
Mm-hmm. I just said it twice.
Chicken.
Well, I would like to say thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Zeb, for helping host. Thank you, Eric, for the forums and the website that you're working on. Honestly, you've done a whole bunch of stuff that would take me years to get through. So I'm super impressed and very thankful. And I'd also like to say thank you to everyone who showed up, everyone in the chat. The participation, the communication between everyone is what makes this really special. And I think that's really great. I have a lot of fun, and I hope to see you guys next week as well.
Awesome. Tyler?
So I ordered some spare drive caddies for my ThinkPad so I can swap out drives to test distros on the ThinkPad a lot quicker. With that, when I get those caddies in, I will try Zorin Os at that moment.
He's lying. Rule. He's going to run Debian in.
Yeah, all the SSDs are going to have Debian. But yeah, Flatpaks rule, and yeah.
Okay.
Looking forward to next week.
Jonathan, last word.
Well, thanks for having me here, Rocco. It's been great, not just being the streams, but being in the community. This is my virtual lug too. So I just want to encourage everyone to not just be in Telegram, but also hop on Discord and say hi. I actually saw some more faces this week, and it's great. So I really encourage everyone to really just participate and conversate. It's been a lot of fun.
Last week's Discord was epic. We had a lot of people on there. It was cool.
Yeah, we probably had 15 or 20 people on Discord after the show.
Awesome.
Bill, last word.
So this is a long one. Let's see what other controversies I can stir up tonight.
Wow.
Rocco, Zeb, thank you very, very much. Eric, you have done an incredible job that people don't see. You are doing awesome work. Dan, no one has mentioned it. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this. I want to congratulate Dan Simons. He is a Ubuntu developer.
Yes.
That is absolutely incredible.
Thanks, Bill.
The other thing I want to point out, I was paid a lot of money to say this, so I'm going to say it. Linux Spotlight. The latest 2 Linux Spotlights have Elle and Elizabeth on there. They are incredible interviews, and sometimes we get caught in, and I hate to say it, there is a lack of diversity sometimes in Linux. The insights and information that they represent is absolutely incredible. From the desktop side, the enterprise side, absolutely incredible. They need to be listened to. That's it.
Very nice. Dan, Kelly, last word.
Okay, it's been really nice being here. I hope I brought enough to the table with my Zorin test. Zeb, you have a very nice holiday.
Thank you.
Rocco, I hope you get some justice over your video card. When I hear stuff like that, it just makes my blood burn.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, you're talking about the Biddle Discord channel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've popped in there a couple times, but chickened out.
Don't chicken out. Come on, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, when I go in there, there's like 4 or 5 guys in the voice chat, and I'm like, do I want to join them and interrupt their conversation or not? And then I just go back to the other Discord channel I'm a mod at.
Wait, but you're okay with this?
Huh?
You're okay with showing your face on the live stream, though?
Yeah, this is a little different because I can associate the face to a name.
Yep.
Except mine.
But
it's a fair point. I think there can be some criticism of there's too many ways to communicate, but honestly, I think people are comfortable with different things. So if you like Telegram, great. If you like Discord, you like Discourse.
That's the whole point of giving all of these options, is to allow people to communicate and still come together no matter which format you enjoy.
And let's not forget the IRC channel.
Right?
The
what? Or the blog.
Yeah, there was like 6 people there every time I visited that. It looked like they were all sleeping.
Yeah, the IRC channel is not frequented a whole lot, but it's there if that's what you prefer. I mean,
some of us hang out there.
And I was going to sign up for the Telegram, but the Telegram wanted my telephone number, and I'm like, no, I have enough problems with robocalls.
Well, that's why you can use Discourse, the forums, Dan, where it's a better way to have actual conversations and keep a track of those conversations. So
I'm learning that.
But for those
you're a great
people
bunch of people, and I'm really happy to be here and join you. Thank you all.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I've ever had a problem with Telegram having my phone number.
Here in the U.S., we have a terrible problem with robocalls. They call you all times of the day. They even call you when you're sleeping at night.
Right, but I don't think Telegram's the root cause of that. I think that's just...
That is a separate problem.
Yeah.
It's the thought of handing your phone number over to another entity.
And I don't blame you for that, Dan. Nope. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to hand your phone number over. So, Joe, last word.
Rocco, as always, thank you. Zeb, have a very safe and happy travels. Rocco, I was thinking about this as I was, believe it or not, I'm renovating a duplex and I'm sweeping up and I'm thinking about this last word. And I don't think you really realize the impact that this show has had. I have been here from the beginning, right from when you did your first live stream and said, hey, anybody wants to join? And I remember thinking about how nervous I was to come on that. And you just welcomed everybody. We've kind of found it's like a business plan. You find your way, you flow. It's grown. You're trying to make it work, but it really has been a huge impact to not only just be able to talk about Linux, but the friendships, I've said this before, that have been made here. It's more than just a tech show channel, whatever you want to call it. I think there's, and I said it last week too. I'm looking forward to if we could ever pull off that meetup that you're talking about, in, central of the country or whatever. I mean, that would be amazing. I do thank you very, very much for, again, for the platform and for the friendships that you've enabled us to have here through this.
Here, Joe.
Well, to add on to that, I mean, before that, we had talked about last week. I talked about what Biddle was about, but specifically talking about this last word. One of the reasons why I started doing the last word was that no matter who you were, even if you didn't participate in the conversations during the show, you could at least have a last word to say something that you wanted to say, regardless of who you were. So that's why this last word was even brought into the picture. So there you go.
Oh, thank you.
Big Pot, last word.
Thank you for having me. Thanks to Eric for setting up that forum. It's awesome. I check it out once in a while. And to Zep, don't get burned.
I will.
Watch out for that.
Ali,
and don't float away. Don't float away. That's important.
That's important. Ali, last word, brother.
Okay, now I can unmute. Yeah, thanks for letting me be here. I've enjoyed it. I haven't inputted a lot, I know, but that's fine. I'll be testing it out next week, being as I didn't have much time this week to do it. Yeah, but thank you, and Zeb, you have a fantastic holiday in Malta. It's a fantastic place. Yeah, and enjoy your nights and evenings and mornings all. It's a pleasure to be here again.
It's good to have you, Ali.
Thank you very much, Rocco.
Nate, last word.
Hey, thanks again for having me. It's always fun. I mean, today I think I was just a peanut gallery, but whatever. It's one of those. But thank you, Rocco, Zeb, Dan, Eric, for everything that you do, and everybody else for being here. Because if I didn't get to see your faces, I'd probably shed a tear or two. So it's nice seeing you.
Matt, last word.
A little late, obviously. Rocco, Zeb, Dan, Eric, appreciate all the work you guys do for the show and the website. It's really, really appreciated. This is literally, like Eric, you mentioned, like the highlight of my week. It's nice being able to have a conversation with people who actually have the same interest as you, as opposed to you talk to Linux, to a non-techie, and they're just like up and over.
Yep, pretty much.
So again, appreciate the hard work you guys are doing and the community that's around it. And yeah, I do want to do one shout out to DistroTube for plugging the smaller Linux YouTubers this past week on one of his videos. Much appreciated. Yes. Spreading the love is always a great thing. And that helps when the bigger YouTubers like that are helping the smaller ones, because we can kind of counterbalance some of the less than ideal headlines, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
For those,
that was awesome, because I think one guy went from 48 to over 1,000 in 4 days.
Yes, he did.
Astonishing.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know,
gave me 4 new podcasts that I hadn't even known about.
Derek over at DistroTube did a video about smaller channels that he felt should be watched and should get more attention. And a couple of these guys on here, including Matt and Colin, were on that list. And I bet you your email Gmail boxes were blowing up with subscribers.
500 emails when I woke up, and I was like, did something go viral? I know I do a lot of yelling and screaming, but like, come on.
All right. That is it for us. I want to congratulate Dan for being on the Ubuntu team. It is well deserved, dude. Just saying. Zeb, have a great time next week. We will miss you, brother. Don't forget where we are, though, the following week, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Zeb next week? Who's Zeb next week?
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh.
I don't have enough hair.
That'll do it for us. Thank you to
Borrow
the
one of Barb's cats.
Yeah.
thank you
I
to
got
the
3 and they're shedding like mad. You can have. I'll send you the fur.
Sorry,
Let me
Rocco.
finish.
Or just grow a beard.
thank you to the Zorin developers for all of their hard work for working on Zorin. We will continue to check out Zorin this week and get through the last group of people who haven't given their words on it. Check out the latest Linux spotlights, and because there is a guy that's in this video right here that will be next. So there you go.
Nice.
Until next week, long live Linux.
Good night, everybody.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye to everybody in chat.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Good night.